All right, good morning. Morning, David.
Morning, John. How are you?
Good, good. How you doing this?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we had fun at the iguana tournament.
Yeah, I gather.
Uh,
I heard that went off well.
yeah, 63 iguanas. We got 5 foot was the biggest one, and nobody got hurt. And Rick did a great job, Rick and Chris, and yeah, it was kids there had fun. Yeah, it was really good. Jimmy said somebody from the sanctuary reached out to him and wanted to have a tournament on the golf course at the sanctuary.
Well, you got 63 of the 30,000.
Yeah. I don't know if it was worth $800, but
We'll talk. We can talk about that later at the meeting.
yeah, yeah.
There is the best-selling author.
Thanks to John Jensen, who over a year ago, I said, Johnny, I might write a book. And I said, Johnny, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So if you can help me out. So he knew this band member who knew a ghostwriter, and voila, the rest is history. Thanks, Johnny. There it is. See, right there.
My brother Jimmy sent me a picture of the cover this morning. Where can you get the book?
You go on Amazon. You go on AmazonBooks.com and then put in the title, and they'll send one to you. I'm getting some here at the end eventually, but they're on the way. But what's interesting is the cover. I took a picture which I really liked, and they couldn't use it. And one of my guests who's been coming here for 40 years painted that picture for me, and then they used that for the cover. So it was kind of exciting.
Yeah, great, great, awesome. Can't wait to read it. That's fantastic. Yeah.
It's a light read. It's not too hard.
That's good.
But remember, it is nonfiction, even though some of it may seem like fiction. But
awesome. Thanks,
Yeah.
Tony.
You're welcome. Thank you, John.
Yeah, man.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
David, do you want to kick things off or?
Yeah, we have, I am currently I'm the vice president of the panel. The former president of the panel is no longer on the panel as of today's meeting. That's Jay Brown, and we thanked him profusely at the last meeting for his service to the panel, and we will thank him again this morning for his service to the panel. And we will remind him that he will continue to chair the wastewater committee and continue to work for with the panel for the next 32 years.
All right, David.
Him know that. We also have two new panel members here. John Wade is on the screen on the right. We're very lucky to have him on the panel now because he is the chairman of the Captiva Erosion Prevention District. And it gives the community the opportunity to hear from him on a monthly basis, in addition to being the chair of the CEPD. And so that's very useful for us, and it's very useful for the community. We also have a new member, Mike Bennett, who I don't see here right now, but he is the CCA appointment, and he is the president of the CCA Foundation. So that is also extremely useful for the panel to have the president of the CCA Foundation on the board, because that gives us insight and information about the CCA going forward also. So we're very lucky to have John and Mike Bennett as new panel members. I'm just going to take a roll call. David Mintz, that's me. I'm here. John Jensen,
Here.
Ann Brady,
Here. Good morning.
Marguerite Maville,
Yeah.
Tony Lappy,
Here.
John Wade,
Here.
Ken Suarez,
Here.
Sandy Stillwell Youngquist. She is here. I see her. I didn't hear her, but I see
Here.
her.
Sorry.
Bruce McDonald could not make today's meeting. I spoke with him. He's up in Canada, I believe. He also said to me that if nominated, he will be pleased to continue to serve as an officer of the panel. And Linda Laird, is she here? Okay, I don't see Linda Laird here right now. Okay, so the first thing on our agenda is to elect the new officers for the panel for the year 2025.
Okay.
As everybody knows, there are 4 officers of the panel. There's the president, the vice president, the secretary, and the treasurer. Currently, the president position is vacated because of Jay's termed out. I am currently the vice president. Currently, Bruce McDonald is the secretary, and currently Tony Lappy is the treasurer. So Ken Goodham, Mike Bennett is trying to get in. Can you assist in that process?
Do you know what he's coming in as? Because I don't see his name.
I do not know what he's coming in as. I will try to get that information to you.
Or if he wants to raise his hand, that way I'll know that.
He said he's in, but he doesn't have access. I don't know what that means exactly.
Oh, there he is. He's listed as Chapel.
Okay. And Linda Laird has now appeared. And Mike Bennett, I believe, is now appearing. So we almost have a full contingent here. Okay, Michael, I don't know if you can hear us. We can't hear you, but there you are. We welcomed you as a new member to the panel. So
Thank you.
Morning, Michael.
Okay,
Good morning.
so the first thing we're going to do is nominations for president. We can take nominations from the floor, and then we'll elect the president, and then we'll go down the list of vice president, secretary, and treasurer.
Okay.
I'll nominate David Mintz for president.
I'll second that.
Second.
Are there any, I don't know if that's good or bad, are there any other nominations?
No such luck.
Say aye.
No,
I didn't hear anything.
no. They,
My internet connection is unstable, it says. Okay. So did everybody say aye? I couldn't hear.
aye.
Hi.
Okay, so thank you very much. I am happy to serve as president for a year. For vice president, we need to take nominations for vice president. If we just promoted everybody up the list, that would be Bruce McDonald. I'm happy to nominate Bruce McDonald as the vice president since he was the former secretary. but we can take other nominations. Are there any other nominations for vice president?
Second that motion.
Yeah.
Okay, has, any other, no other nominations for vice president? All those in favor of electing Bruce McDonald as vice president, please say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. For secretary, moving up the list, I would nominate Tony Lappy for secretary. Are there any other nominations for secretary?
Mm-mm. I'll second your motion, David.
Okay, Tony, is that acceptable to you to
Yeah,
accept that?
I can do that as long as, as long as I got Ken Gallaher here, I feel pretty good. Backup man, he does all the work, so sure.
Okay, great. Any other nominations for secretary?
Mm.
Okay, all those in favor of electing best-selling author Tony Lappy as secretary?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you. Okay, and then we have an open position for treasurer. I would nominate Sandy Stillwell for treasurer if,
Sure,
Yeah. I,
if she would
I like
accept that nomination.
yeah,
sure,
I second.
Sandy, would you accept that nomination?
sure. Okay. Yes,
Is that a yes?
yes. Mhm.
Okay, are there any other nominations for secretary, for treasurer?
Mm-mm.
Okay, all those in favor of electing Sandy Stillwell Youngquist as treasurer of the Captiva Community Panel, please say aye.
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 Any objections? Any noes? Thank you. Okay, we have offices for the coming year. David Mintz, Bruce McDonald, Tony Lappy, and Sandy Stillwell Youngquist. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is the approval of the December 10th minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the December 10th minutes?
Yeah.
I've had an opportunity.
Any proposed changes to the December 10th minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second,
I
Okay.
second.
All those in favor of approving the December 10th minutes of the panel, please say aye.
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 Any nays? Minutes approved. Thank you. Okay, next thing on the agenda, going through our agenda, is we have an update from Sergeant Rich Zeltman. I believe Mr. Zeltman, Sergeant Zeltman is here. Rich, if you'd like to give a report, everybody would be pleased to hear it.
Good morning, everyone. So parking continues to be a challenge for us as it was last month, as I spoke last month about parking. As we all know, the public beach parking lots are still closed on Captiva. So it's been a challenge for us to make sure that people don't park where they shouldn't park. We've been working closely with our partners, with CEPD and the Sanibel, and trying to educate the public to let them know that it's not a good idea to park in the closed parking lots or on private property. So that's been a little bit of a challenge, but we're doing what we can, make sure that that's the case. And I encourage your viewers to, if they don't want people parking in their parking lots or in their driveways or in their private property, to, put up signage or some type of barrier or rope it off in some way. So, that's what we've been dealing with this past month. If anybody has questions about that, I'll be happy to answer them. Another thing was that we had there was a traffic crash at Jensen's Curve. Alcohol was a factor. No, there were no injuries, but I would just like to encourage your viewers to, drink responsibly. make sure that when they do drive, they drive with due care, make sure they understand that there are bicyclists, joggers, people in wheelchairs, people, it's just important that, this island has a lot of curves and, you know, it, just to be careful when they drive.
Hey, Rich, along the Twin Waters stretch from Jensen's Curve, there's a lot of sand where people normally would have at least a little bit of room to walk. And I noticed that, is there any movement from DOT at all to sort of help get that sort of pathway back?
We put requests in for various things and we haven't seen much improvement on that. We know that there even signage is not there to, notify people that, hey, there's a curve coming up. So in addition to the sand, there's not as much signage as there once was, but I haven't, heard much about from DOT. We even have cones still lined up, along that side of that road, and that's more for people not to park off the side of the road to whether look at the sunset or just to go to the beach. So it's just going to be, I think it's going to be some more time before they could get to it.
Okay, all right, just thought I'd ask. Thanks.
Rich, what time of day was the accident?
Was that night, like,
Hmm.
I think it was like, yeah, it's midnight,
Wow.
11 p.m. or midnight.
And was it a visitor or was it a resident?
It was a visitor from out of state.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Which direction were they coming from, Rick?
They were going north,
Oh, okay.
yeah, they were going north.
Okay.
So they just completely missed the curve and went straight into the wooded area and off the road.
Okay.
But if there was somebody walking or a bicycle or something in that corner, that would have been tragic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else, Rich?
That's it for this month.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions for Rich?
Yeah, Rich, there was some rumors that South Seas had applied for a permit to begin to tow or disable vehicles inside the resort. Do you have any information on that whatsoever?
I heard that also, but I have not received any information on it. They did ask me several months ago the process of doing it, and I provided them with information on how to go through the sheriff's office and get permitting for that. But I have not heard since if they had gotten the permit or if they've gotten the process done yet or not.
Is there a way for the public to be able to find that out? Or can you find that out for us?
I could try to find that out for you.
Okay,
Or,
that would
yeah,
be very helpful. I know that you guys responded to an interesting situation inside the resort the day after New Year's, where multiple golf carts were towed from various associations on property and stacked up in one of Celsius' own parking lots, which they've denied any involvement in. But has there been any update on that?
Now, I know that it was a documented incident, but I have not heard of any updates on it, whether they were towed or whether they were pushed, whether they were driven. I'm sorry, I don't have an update on that, but get with me after the meeting. We could discuss it further.
Okay, appreciate it, Rich.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Rich. Next thing on the agenda is Chief Jeff Powell from the Fire District. I don't see him here at this point. If he comes in later, we will move him onto the agenda. Next is CEPD update from I'm presuming it's going to regularly come from Chairman John Wade, which would be very good to have. So John, it's all yours.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So CEPD had its first meeting of 2025 yesterday at 1 o'clock. It was a general meeting. There wasn't anything that was out of the ordinary. Just to go over some of the key takeaways. We received over the weekend our final damage assessment from Aptum Engineering with regard to the post-Helene Milton hurricane, which we spent quite a bit of time on. The end result was basically that we lost about an additional 300,000 cubic yards. And most of this is in comparison to where we were pre-storm under the Ian situation, which had obviously not been yet addressed. So we looked at Milton and Helene as additional to the existing Ian project, which we accumulated an additional 300,000 cubic yards of sand that will need to be replaced, or could also be interpreted as additional loss. It does not include the report we found out did not include a lot of the sand that went upland across the CCL. So we imagine that it was far more than 300,000 cubic yards, but we're just concentrating on everything from the CCL to the shoreline. So that 300,000 cubic yards will be taken into account, and we will be putting in a change order for an additional 100,000 cubic yards for this Springs project. The 200,000 cubic yard delta is already included in our project, and that we had a 25% margin on top of our 800,000 cubic yard estimate. So we had a free 200,000, not free, we're going to pay for it, but we didn't have to put a change order in for it. So we will be adding an additional 200 to 300,000 cubic yards to our project this spring. We don't anticipate that it's going to affect the timeline. And the other key component that we took out of the assessment is that taken unto itself, the damages from Milton and Helene to the beach side, the Gulf front side of Captiva, was approximately $12.7 million in damages, based on the exact unit cost that we applied to the Ian project. The good news is that because we haven't started the Ian project, a lot of the $12.7 million in damages is not going to be incurred, simply because a lot of it entails mobilization costs that would obviously be redundant with the Ian project that's set to start on May 1st. We do approximate that we're looking at about $5 million of additional costs to the project just for sand replacement and other ancillary costs. Moving on from that damage, early December meeting, we decided we would bring in some temporary help, possibly long-term help. But right now, under the official capacity as interim director, we brought in Paul Tritek. Some of you may know Paul. He is the former director, I believe, of Ding Darling. And we also brought in a part-time consultant, Evan Cutler, who is actually the son of the old CEPD chair, going back to the very first renourishment back in 1989, Stephen Cutler. Evan's going to help us update our back office systems and get our documentation up to the 21st century. Moving on from there, we did discuss with regard to the sheriff talking about parking, we did discuss and authorize $50,000 to get the Hagerup parking lot up to speed and back working again. It needs quite a bit of work, as I know many of you have seen. The goal is, and I think we will meet this goal, is to have the parking lot available to the public in full operation by February 1st.
Great.
That's about it. We have had some additional inquiries about, more specific timelines on the project this spring. And it was noted through Aptum yesterday that we are entering the final phase pre-construction where they're going to start really putting together that timeline in a sense that we can depend on. We could, right now, if we were to force their hand, it would all be estimates. But as we move into late February, early March, the Great Lakes contractor will be committing to certain dates. It's just too premature to do that right now, but we will be sharing with the public the exact timeline as we get closer to mid-spring. That's about it. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer.
There's questions from the audience about an update on the vacant seat.
Oh, yes, I completely lost thought on that. We did fill seat 5. Seat 5 was vacated in August by Richard Pyle, our previous treasurer, and was appointed in September to Mike Lanigan. And we thank Mike for his time on the board. That appointment was temporary, namely the statutes require that the appointments can only go till the end of the election term. So that appointment in September expired in November, requiring us to refill the seat yesterday for the new election term, which will now be for 4 years. And that seat was Tim McGowan, who some of you may know is a local resident, the owner of the Green Flash, and many other businesses. He has joined our board yesterday, and we welcome him, and we're looking forward to working with him as well.
Great. Are there any other questions for John?
Can I make one comment here?
Sure.
The Aptum report, a lot of the public may find it interesting. It will be posted on our website. One fact I found interesting was that the average beach loss in terms of feet was 27 feet. And that was just averaged all across Captiva. In front of your homes, it will be different, but it gives you a look at each marker on what happened on the profile. So you can see what happened to the dunes and the beach in front of your house. This was taken in October, so things do change, but you might be interested in looking at that report.
Any other things for John? John, I just, you don't have to deal with it today, but in the future, if you could give a report, my understanding is that the CEPD has taken over the iguana control for the island, other than Sandy's iguana capture. And so maybe you could just give us a sense of the expenditures and what the relationship is with Alfredo now that the EPD has taken over the iguana control element of for Captiva. And that would be the first thing. And the second thing I would ask is that the last meeting you mentioned that you were going to be, CEPD was going to be producing a dunes management manual, or thinking about producing a dunes management manual, so that property owners who have beachfront property will have a better understanding of what can and cannot be done at the edge of the erosion protection line, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that was a very good idea, and I'm just curious whether or not that's still going to happen.
Yes, it absolutely is. It kind of plays into what I was saying about as we enter this final phase pre-construction, because it ties into, rather than duplicate the costs associated with putting that manual together, because it will entail actual boundary lines that we want to be able to have the public understand where those lines are. We're going to utilize the surveys that will be conducted as part of the construction. So we're looking at having we'll have a draft probably by, I would guess, I'm hoping March, April, but we'll have a final manual done, I would say, right at the conclusion of the project, which should be this summer.
Okay. Right. Which, as you know, there's a lot of confusion about that, and it just would be.
Yeah. What's going to happen is right now the current project has been engineered around the monuments, which just to get everybody up to speed, I'm sure you guys understand, there are a set of monuments that go along the beach that are historic monuments, which are used historically for surveying. Most of it now has been transferred to geodata, but they still use the monuments. You can't, some of them are still there, some of them are buried. But there are approximately 1,000 feet linear from north to south apart from one another. As we approach the project, the surveyors are going to come in and they're going to break those monument spaces up into 100-foot increments, which is going to be obviously give us a lot more resolution to apply to some mapping and be able to transfer that knowledge over to the public.
Mm.
So, yeah, that would all be part of the manual. Once we establish the actual dune boundaries, that's we're going to, you know, the second half of that project will entail how to maintain according to DEP guidelines. We're going to reiterate how to maintain and protect the dunes, and you know, from everything that is already in the statutes, but will be much more you know, I think visible to the public via our own local manual.
Right. And John, this is John here. I assume that'll be compatible with Lee County's requirements with their own dune protection rules. It'll all be together.
Yeah, we have no, you know, we don't get to, you know, sidestep DEP or Lee County, you know, ordinances and regulations. This is just a multi-layered cake. What we're going to do is we're going to, since we're the local entity, it only makes sense that we're here to monitor that and to basically work with the local public to, you know, just reiterate really what already exists, as I was saying.
Okay, thank you.
Let me add one more point. We had a review of the Bay Adaptation Plan for sea level rise. That was on Thursday at Tween Waters. Thank you, Tween Waters. And it will be posted on the website. I urge people to take a look at it, and I guess contact us if you have questions. We're going to be doing more on it, but if you want to take a look at that document at this point in time, it's there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. The Bayside Adaptation Plan is pretty much finished up with regard to our assessment and our consultation. Next steps would be to figure out processes in which we would work with the local community to help them figure out multiple ways of resiliency on the Bayside for each individual property. Honestly, that is something that I'm looking to concentrate on after the beach renourishment. It's going to require a lot of work, and it's going to require a lot of interaction with the community and the property owners. And right now, the CEPD's priority is the beach renourishment.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Linda. Any other questions for John? Terrific. Okay, next on the agenda is the SCCF update. I believe we have Ally here.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I'm filling in for Matt today. Our biggest update is that red tide is starting to tick up a bit locally on the islands. We're seeing low to medium concentrations in Lee County, with the highest counts of medium at Allison Hagerup Beach. The situation is evolving daily, as you all know, and a little red tide is to be expected with this time of year, but we just want to make sure that it doesn't get exasperated. And we are in communication with the Army Corps that there is an active bloom offshore. We're going to be on a call with the Army Corps today, communicating that to them, because we are receiving small flows from the lake right now as part of lake recovery operations. So we want to ensure that that nutrient-rich water from the lake isn't feeding this active bloom. So we are in communication with them on that. And I'm just going to send in the chat the daily status page from FWC for red tide if anyone's not already following this. This is the best place to see the daily status. So this is updated daily at 5 p.m. And then this link, which you might all already be familiar with, just has all the information on the active bloom. And we are seeing wildlife impacts on Sanibel and Captiva. We're starting to see minor fish kills, a lot of crustaceans dead on the beach, multiple species of eels, a few birds have been found dead, and then we had a stranding of a loggerhead and a green turtle. And we've also heard reports of some minor respiratory impacts to humans. So we're just keeping a really close eye on the situation. And if anyone does see any fish kills or wildlife impacts, I would really appreciate it if you could shoot me an email. I can send my email as well.
Well, there are fish kills up and down the beach and crustacean kills up and down on the beach on Captiva when I walked it yesterday.
Okay. Do you know what species of fish? Was it mullet?
What was it? Mullet? I don't know.
No, that's okay.
I don't know. There were some shrimp, there were crabs, as well as fish.
Okay.
Okay, that's as much as I know.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And what stretch of beach was that?
In the village area in the Tween Waters, I walked the entire Tween Waters stretch into the Gold Coast going south.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there anything else, Ally, that you want to report?
That's pretty much it for us.
Okay.
Any questions?
Are there any questions for Ally? I have a question for everyone, and John in particular. And you know, if we had a serious fish kill as a result of the red tide, in the past, there's always been a question of who's responsible for removing the dead fish before they start to smell and affect the community. And it was always unclear whether that's the county's obligation, whether CEPD plays some role in that, whether that was the panel's obligation to figure out how to make that happen. And I don't know if there's any answer that anyone's aware of at this time. If there is a significant fish kill, whose responsibility it would be to removing the dead fish. I don't know if CEPD has any idea about that. If not, it probably behooves us to make some inquiries to develop some sort of preemptive plan should that happen. So let me just ask John, is that something that's within your purview or jurisdiction that you're aware of at this point?
Well, as far as jurisdiction goes, we have a broad enough legislative authority to address it for sure. It's my belief. This is something again that is going to be post-construction. I have a whole new agenda set for this summer in the second half of the year. I do believe that if we are in a situation where we do have a giant fish kill, as a community, we should have a plan. And CEPD should be a part of that. 1 second, please. The CEPD should be a part of that, alongside the county and the DEP. As far as historically, Linda may be able to speak to it more. I don't, I have a limited experience in that, so I'll let Linda comment.
Okay, yeah. So I was asking about this earlier. My understanding is we have standard procedures based upon the density of dead fish when we invoke the cleanup. So CEP does do the cleanup and pays for it, but it's based upon how many dead fish are out there. That's what I was told by the staff.
Tony.
Yeah, Visitor Convention Bureau has the machines and the equipment for Lee County. That if there is significant thing, the beach program and will pretty much help and do that, whether it's Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel, Captiva.
Okay.
If it's significant, they have the equipment that comes out that can pick up the dead fish if it's significant, and they fund it. So that's something that somebody needs to contact them if we get to be a significant amount.
So maybe it's we contact, CEPD pays attention and then contacts them. If it's not, so that's probably how it really works. It takes a while for us to hit that point. If the community wants it earlier, then the CEPD and the panel need to talk about it and decide, I would guess.
Well,
I'm
it
going to
will
the meeting.
also, it will,
I'm going to the meeting on Thursday for VCB. I can certainly find out how and what steps and where we have to be and who to contact. I'm happy to do that.
Great.
it no doubt will be part of our beach monitoring process, which will be a daily occurrence as we
Right.
as we start to codify all of that with the new administration.
Okay, so John and Linda and Tony communication, so that hopefully we don't have anything between now and the next panel meeting, but at the next panel meeting, just give us a report about how we think we should proceed if we're faced with one and who would take the lead at that point.
Yeah.
And Ally, are we expecting that there could be some serious red tide within the next month and a possible major fish kill?
We're really not sure. This bloom has been out there for, I think, over 2 months at this point, but it's just shifting so quickly every day with the winds. There could be the potential for it to be exasperated, but we're not really seeing a situation where it would. There's not any variables that would cause it to really explode right now. So I think the odds are about as normal as they could be right now.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Tony. Thank you, Ally, but thank you, Tony, Linda, and John. And hopefully we'll figure out some sort of protocol going forward, because I know there was confusion as over who was doing it and how it got done.
Thank you. I have to hop off for another meeting, but thank you all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is County South Seas redevelopment, rezoning, and legal update. I can give a quick update on that. As everybody knows by now, that there was a settlement agreement that was signed between the CCA, the Lee County, and the developer at South Seas back in 2003, the Plantation Development Company. When it looked back in 2003 that the county in South Seas was going to exceed the 912 units that could be built on South Seas at that time. And the CCA filed a lawsuit. And as a result of that lawsuit, the county and the Plantation Development Company came up with a settlement agreement that was mediated and approved by the court back in 2003, which limited density development on South Seas to 912 dwelling units. And the mechanism to enforce that 912 dwelling unit limit was chosen by the county, which was simply that they would be prohibited from issuing building permits above the 912 dwelling units at any time. When the county in 2023, last year, or 2 years ago now, amended our Captiva code to exempt South Seas from density limitations that apply to everybody else and every other business on Captiva, CCA filed a lawsuit in circuit court to validate that existing settlement agreement to limit development to 912 dwelling units. That lawsuit was filed this year. The county and South Seas together opposed that lawsuit. First, they made a motion to dismiss, which was denied by the court. Then both the CCA on the one hand, and then South Seas and the county together on the other hand, both filed motions for summary judgment, meaning that there were no facts in dispute. We all agree what the facts are. The question is, what does that contract require? Is it valid? And was it appropriately agreed upon back in 2003? And the court first dealt with the county and South Seas motion for summary judgment, basically to dismiss the complaint, and he denied that motion on January 7th. He basically said in his order that the settlement agreement was valid and enforceable, and all of the defenses raised by the county and South Seas were denied. And basically, those defenses could be summed up simply as the county didn't have the authority or the right to enter that agreement back in 2003. The court basically said that they did, and it is a valid contract. So after that was issued on January 7th, which was a significant victory for Protect Captiva and the CCA, then the CCA's motion for summary judgment was argued last week. And it was a very vociferous argument between the CCA attorneys and the county and the South Seas attorneys. It went on for over an hour. Fox News 4 was there, Wink News was there, News Press was there. It was a well-covered event. At the end of the argument, the judge basically said that he believes that the settlement agreement is valid and enforceable, notwithstanding the arguments of South Seas and the county. And he said he stands by the findings that he approved on January 7th, basically denying all the defenses raised by the county and South Seas. He then asked the parties, and primarily our attorneys, to submit a proposed order by Wednesday of this week, tomorrow. And we expect that he will grant our motion to Protect Captiva, the CCA's motion for summary judgment shortly thereafter, probably by the end of this week or early next week. We expect it would be similar to the reasons and findings that he ordered in their motion when he denied their motion for summary judgment. I wouldn't be saying this other than the fact that he signaled this very clearly from the bench when he said that he believed the settlement agreement was valid and that he would stand by his findings on January 7th. So unless something changes radically, which is very unlikely, the CCA's motion for summary judgment will be granted. And that means simply that the settlement agreement, which says that the total number of dwelling units on South Seas resorts is limited to 912. No building permits may be issued by the county for dwelling units within South Seas Resort that will cause that number to be exceeded at any time. So that is the first set of, that's the first lawsuit that we have a result on. We expected a second decision, actually yesterday, from the Division of Administrative Hearings. That is the case where we asked the court to decide whether or not the code amendments that exempted South Seas and the rest of Captiva from the existing building heights and density limitations is inconsistent with the Lee plan. We argued that it's inconsistent and therefore those amendments should be repealed. That is where we have this very strange standard of proof, meaning that if the county can show that these amendments are fairly debatable, fairly debatable is the standard, that it's, you can fairly debatably argue that they're consistent with the plan provisions, then they're good. That's a terrible standard, but we actually, after 5 days of hearing, believe that we made a good case that these code amendments, it's not even fairly debatable that they're consistent with the LEAP plan that requires the county to enforce development standards consistent with the historic development pattern on Captiva, which, as everybody knows, is 3 units per acre, and with heights that are less than that's being proposed, which is 65 to 90 feet tall. So I think that we're waiting that decision. It'll probably come down today or tomorrow. If we win, it'll be great. If we lose, it's not the end of the world. But we're very much looking forward to what the judge has to say. So we have that settlement agreement, which is now probably going to be enforceable, but that doesn't prevent the South Seas from still requesting a rezoning, which they are doing, and that rezoning is scheduled for February 14th, February 20th, and February 21st. February 14th will be a day probably, this is all before an independent hearing examiner, and February 14th will probably be a day where the South Seas presents its application. and why they think it should be approved and why it's compatible with the rest of development on Captiva. South Seas has the burden of proof in this case. It's not like some of the other cases where we have the burden of proof. They have the burden of proof to show that it's consistent with the land development code, the plan, and it's compatible with the rest of Captiva. So, and the rest of South Seas. So that presentation will probably take place on February 14th. Then the public, including the opposition, the CCA, the Protect Captiva Coalition, the associations, the other associations, South Seas, they will present their case on February 20th and 21st. And the public is invited to speak at those hearings. There's unlimited time associated with your presentation, so long as it's not duplicative of someone else's. So I would ask that everybody keep those dates open. If you're available on the 14th to listen to the application presentation, that would be great, but certainly keep February 20th and February 21st open. We had maybe 100 people testifying back in 2023, and we would hope to have that kind of participation on February 20th and 21st. The Protect Captiva Coalition will ask people if they're planning to attend. It'll come up in a future update, and then we will coordinate that with people and help people who wish to have their voices heard. So what happens is the hearing examiner will listen to all this testimony and make a recommended decision as to whether she thinks the application should be approved. That recommended decision then goes to the Board of County Commissioners for their approval. You can't speak to the Board of County Commissioners unless you make an appearance on February 20th or 21st. So you have to keep that in mind. And we don't know what we don't know what the hearing examiner is going to do, and we don't know what the Board of County Commissioners are going to do. We know that they have the right to approve whatever they wish to approve that's consistent with the code and the lead plan. However, they will also know that the court has just told them that the density is limited to 912 units, and they can't issue building permits beyond that. There is a likelihood that South Seas and the county will appeal that decision, which can take 18 months, given the calendar of the Court of Appeals. So it's a very complicated issue we have here.
Yeah.
And then we have that DOER hearing, the one on the consistency, coming up with a decision any day now. So we try to sort this out. We try to let the community know how this all plays out. Hopefully, at the end of the day, the county recognizes that the changing the code to allow this to happen was a mistake, and they repeal these objectionable code amendments and deny this application, which is seeking a major increase in intensity and density for South Seas. Tony, did you have a question?
Yeah, just one question, just for clarity. The 912, does that include the employee housing?
Yes, the 912 included the 640 units that were owned by all the other associations and property owners on South Seas. It included the 140 employee housing units. It included the 107 hotel units at the north end of the resort by the big marina. And it included 25 unbuilt units that were never built. That equaled 912. Over the years, South Seas was given the permission to replace, if you remember, there were some amendments, replace the 140 units with other kinds of units, but still to stay within the 912. And the position of Protect Captiva is 912, whether they be condos, employee housing units, or hotel units, they're all included in the 912 because that's what was intended when they rezoned the property in 1973, and that's what was intended in the administrative interpretation that memorialized that in 2002.
And the unit from employee housing could be a two-bedroom, two-bath unit, correct?
Well, that's the irony of this. In Lee County, a unit is a unit is a unit. So if you have a studio, that's a unit. If you have a 4-bedroom apartment, that's a condo, that's a unit. So you could have very big units. Yes.
Yeah, in effect, we, meaning the CCA, and then by granting that they could do the employee housing with those number of units, we basically granted them some increase in density, if you think about it, correct?
Yeah.
It is a complete, density is, this is very archaic, but
Yeah.
density is what they call, you count the units and that's your density. The
I get it.
intensity of use gets increased when you have more bedrooms and more bathrooms. So yes, we say they're entitled to 272 units, but when they went from employee housing and small hotel rooms to 272, maybe 4-bedroom condos, it increases intensity and value and potential profit exponentially. So it's not like there's no potential for development here. It's just got to be done within the existing approvals that have been in effect for 50 years, 912 units.
Thanks, Dave. That clarifies everything I needed to know. Thanks.
Any other questions regarding this? Okay, this is, as everybody knows, the city of Sanibel, the CCA, the panel, Ding Darling, SCCF have all been working very closely together on this. And we continue to work very closely, including all the associations. There are 20 associations or 19 associations at South Seas, and they're all going to be participating in this hearing that's going to take place in February. And the community thanks the panel, and the panel thanks the community.
Hello.
Right. Okay.
Hi there, hon.
Okay.
David,
Jay,
there are a couple of questions in the audience.
sure, go ahead.
One was about the injunction against Timbers for putting the entrance of the new Beach House restaurant against the public access on Sunset Beach.
Okay. I don't have an updated answer to that. I know there's litigation on the that restaurant. Its proximity to the easement, and my understanding there's going to be future litigation on this, and that there's existing litigation. I don't know if Ken can update people on whether or not, I don't believe there's been any injunctions issued at this point, but I do believe there are hearings pending. Ken, is that accurate?
Yes, that is correct. Also, the county has been made aware that it appears the building itself is in breach of the current setback regulations. So what they choose to do about it is anybody's guess, but if you haven't been inside the resort to see how this restaurant is built, it literally, the roof line sits right on top of the road.
Ken, are there any other questions?
Yes, if South Seas and Lee County decide to appeal the circuit court decision, what would be involved in the process and how long would it take? You said 18 months, but what is the process?
Well, I'm not, when I said 18 months, I've been advised that there's a backup there's a calendar of backed up of appeals, and it could take a year to 18 months to have an appeal heard. But you perfect the appeal, you submit your papers and the basis for appeal, which have to be based on the arguments you made below, meaning at the circuit court level. And Protect Captiva will retain an appellate attorney to defend the decision of the circuit court judge. And either the county will have to make a decision whether it appeals, and South Seas separately will have to make a decision whether it appeals. The county, for South Seas to appeal, I do not believe it requires the county to appeal. South Seas, because they're an intervener in this case, they have the right to appeal because they were given status as an intervener when the motions were filed. So that's the case. It's a normal, regular appeal. And the arguments that were heard below, meaning at the circuit court level, will be reheard again at the appellate level. And we, of course, at that point, will be hopeful that the Court of Appeals, if they appeal, will affirm the decision of the court below. Anything else, Ken?
Yeah, there are two questions about hotel units. One asks, has the court clarified that Timber's assertion that hotel units are not dwellings? And is the resort able to increase the Harborside hotel rooms greater than 107 units?
Greater than what?
107?
Yeah, there are two questions here. The 900, it's a little unclear how this is going to play out, but 912 units are are the limit. 640 are already built. So that leaves Timbers with 272 units. They had 107 units at the large marina, the Harborside. They could choose to do 272 hotel units, or they could choose to do 200 hotel units and 72 condos, or they could do 200 condos and 72 hotel units. Our position is they're entitled to 272, and the history at South Seas is they could choose what kind of units they wish to build, but it's still got to stay within the limitation of the 912, of which this minority owner of only 120 acres of the 304 are entitled to 272. The other question that arose for the first time at the hearing is that the attorney for the South Seas said that the limitation of 912 dwelling units doesn't contain hotel units. So they're only asking for 193 condos and 435 hotel units, and hotel units shouldn't count as part of the 912 dwelling units. That argument, the court didn't buy that argument. The court actually said, we're talking about a PUD, and basically said the 912 applied to the PUD, the planned unit development. But there is no question that the 2003 settlement agreement, which limited development in the 912, included both hotels and residential dwelling units. It's clear from the administrative interpretation, which references hotels in the administrative interpretation. It's clear from the 1973 zoning approval. Backup papers all talk about the hotels. Even the plan application by South Seas describes their the 912 is including 107 hotel units at Harborside, at the north side of the resort. So the argument that South Seas made that the dwelling units in the settlement agreement didn't include hotels, I think is going nowhere. And I don't think, when we had the DOA proceeding where we had sworn testimony, the county zoning manager and the county planning manager testified under oath that the 912 included hotel units. So that's not going to be an issue, and it's a good question because it was raised by the South Seas attorney as a last-ditch effort to claim that there was issues in dispute, factual issues in dispute, and summary judgment wouldn't be appropriate if there's factual issues in dispute. But all we're asking the court to do is approve the agreement as written, which is 912 dwelling units, and we're very confident that that includes hotels. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Next thing on the agenda is a review and approval of the 2025 budget. Ken, do you want to take this?
Yes. In the packet, I have updated the budget based on the donations we've gotten so far to close out 2024 and the proposed expenses for 25 to show essentially a balanced budget that does not include any discretionary money for other organizations, such as the $20,000 that the panel authorized this year to go to protect Captiva. So really the question in front of you is, do you wish to add any additional money to the budget to cover that, or are you satisfied with it the way it is?
Can I ask one question, Ken? Does at the bottom of the financial update page where it says cash available for use, $120,406.36, does that include the $34,000 that you reported on the next page as contributions at the end of 2024?
Yes.
Okay.
What that is we have a certain amount of donations or grants that are in an escrow account to pay for the City of Sanibel study and to escrow some of the monies that people gave to us for an extended period of time. So we authorized it a certain amount every year. So that the 120 is what we can actually spend. The 200 is what we've got in the bank.
Okay, and the 120 includes the contributions to date.
Correct.
Are there any questions that any of the panel members have to Ken regarding the budget?
Mm-mm. You know,
Okay, the only thing I would say is it might be prudent to include, I don't know about 20,000, but maybe 10,000 just in case this thing drags on for a while, and in case there's appeals, and in case Protect Captiva ask the various organizations, SCCF, Ding Dong, et cetera, for renewed contributions, because we don't know what we're going to face. Is there any downside to just putting $10,000 in the budget for a potential expenditure for a contribution to Protect Captiva if it's necessary?
No,
I don't know how the panel feels about that.
yeah.
I think it's a good idea myself. You know, you have it, whether you need to expend it or not, it's there, so it would make sense to me, David.
I mean, we could always amend the budget at any time, but the question is I suspect that that's not an unreasonable amount, and why not budget for it so that we know we have to raise money when we start looking at how to raise money.
Yeah.
We
I
need a
agree.
proposal for this. Are we approving this budget today?
yes,
So we're gonna need a vote, and we probably put that in there, correct, Ken?
a motion to at least increase it. You can accept the budget as is with a motion to increase the discretionary fund to $10,000.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. I'll second.
Is there any discussion on that motion?
Hmm.
Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Ken, and any other discussion on the budget?
Nope. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we can move on.
Okay.
Yes, we insult David. He
Us.
left.
When I said move on, I didn't mean literally. But
Funny.
I guess in the interim, Linda, do you have anything to report on stormwater? You're muted.
That's David's report, not me.
Okay. So I guess until David gets back, we'll have to put that on hold. And since we have dead space, do you want to talk about development?
Yeah, sure. I mean, looking at the budget, we are only we were about $8,000 short from our projected money from solicited donations, but it's always just really a matter of accounting, because the annual appeal is where we get most of those funds, and they came in at the end of last year. They came in the end of this year. We'll get again in January of 2025, which won't be reflected until the 2025 budget. So I think we're actually have done well. The fundraising events were less than anticipated. We had budgeted 18 and we only got about 3,000. And that's because we did not charge for the cruise this year because of the hurricanes, and we just wanted to make it more open. So I think it's just a matter of discussion in the future if we want to make it a paid event or a just make it free.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think we did pretty well. And there's, as you see, there's $37,000 proposed for solicited donations in 2025. And I don't see a problem at all. Ken writes a very good annual appeal and people respond very generously. So thanks to everyone who has donated thus far. And this is, of course, on top of many people donating to the Protect Captiva Fund. So very generous community.
Mhm. Mhm.
I
We're
obviously.
moving on without you, David.
Yeah, and
We're done.
Yeah, so I assume you skipped over the update on meeting space and on stormwater committee? Is that what happened?
Missed the meeting space altogether. Sorry about that. And stormwater, we're waiting for you to get back. Meeting space, I can give you a brief update.
ahead.
The CCA has budgeted some improvements in their audiovisual capacity. However, that's not going to happen in the near term because they've had some other budgetary challenges with the storm damage. So they will be doing upgrades, but it will take a while to get there. That's not something you should count on this season. And the yoga class is still locked in for Tuesday morning. So if there is a desire to go back to in-person next fall and use the CCA facility, we need to let them know soon before they sign any contracts for with the yoga instructor for the following months. So that may be a discussion you'll want to have next meeting or now to decide when you'd like to go back in person. And if you want to leave the CCA option open, obviously the other option would be to talk to Tony and see if there's any space between waters. I have not explored your AV capacity there, Tony, because I didn't
Yeah.
want to open up that until we knew it was necessary.
Yeah, just to let you know, Ken, you're welcome to, I'm not an AV guy or whatever, but if you want to come up or talk to my guys about what they can do, I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to donate the room because I don't see us using it on a Tuesday morning. But if the CCA and how people feel about the Zoom right now, I remember, people were kind of thought we could get more people in with the Zoom. And I'm not crazy about the split, trying to do in person and Zoom at the same time, because that's always kind of awkward. But maybe doing 2 or 3 in-season meetings, I'd be more than happy to help out if that works out. Whether we want to try to do it this year or not, you want to do, you know, it's January now. I mean, do you want to try to do March and April in person? Tell me and let me know so we can explore that.
And the challenge is to explain a little bit about doing hybrid meetings is to try to make the experience valid for everybody. On Zoom, everybody's on the same platform and can see the same experience. In person, obviously, you all can see each other and speak to each other. Getting the technology to be facile enough or nimble enough to do both of them is more of the challenge. And there's a lot of people that have been trying to do it and it's getting better, but it still is very tricky to be able to have the audience more than just being able to watch a room full of people being filmed, and even to have, more importantly, to have panel members who cannot attend in person to be able to participate effectively. It's going to take a little bit of work to get there, in my mind, because what I've seen so far and what I've tried to do so far just isn't quite there in terms of making it really functional for panel members to participate wherever they are. Obviously, in the summer, that's more critical because we don't have a lot of people on the island, so staying on Zoom makes a lot of sense. Trying to do in person in season with a Zoom component, we're still not there technologically, but we can certainly aim for a target if you wish.
My understanding is that the CCA is going to try to get the technology this spring and the summer to be able to do a good hybrid meeting. I would recommend that we stick with Zoom through the end of the summer and then see how that develops and see if a hybrid meeting is possible. If a hybrid meeting is not possible, then make a decision at that time whether to do some in person, some Zoom meetings. But I think given the participation we have on Zoom and given that a lot of people still aren't back in their homes, that I think it behooves us to continue to do Zoom to maximize participation, at least through the end of the summer. If that's how I see it. I don't know how other people feel.
Yeah,
David?
I
Go
agree.
ahead, John.
No, I agree. Yeah, go
One
ahead.
thing, David, do we need what Ken's saying? Do we need to secure the CCA? Do we need to make a commitment to them for next year?
Um, Well, obviously, let me see. I think let me speak to, well, we have Mike Bennett here, but we have, president of the CCA Foundation. And so maybe he could talk to, Catherine and Lisa and see what the situation is and give us a report at the next meeting, whether it makes sense to reserve Tuesday mornings once a month, for the panel. And maybe we can do that. And that may make sense to do. And that way we will have some options.
I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this? Okay, next thing is the stormwater update. I, I don't know if Linda has something other than what I know. Okay, the only thing I know is what I reported at the last meeting, that there are 4 finalists for our stormwater engineering study for the village of Captiva. They were Collective Water Resources, Johnson, Moran Thompson, Respect Company, and Weston and Sampson Engineers. I have asked for a report from one of those companies to ask what happened at the meeting and whether anyone was selected at this point, and I haven't heard back yet. But what I do want to say is, as soon as there is a selection made for who's going to do the stormwater project, I think we need to create a committee for the a panel committee to work with the engineering team that's going to do that stormwater project, because we have people on the ground. Sandy obviously would be a good person since she's been flooded so often, and is aware of a lot of that. And then maybe when we find out who's selected, we can at the next meeting sort of put together a committee with not only panel members, but people in the community who live in some of the low points like Binder and some of the other places in the village that are really susceptible to flooding, Captiva Drive, parts of Andy Rossi, and then be ready to be up and running as soon as they're ready to begin that study. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Any other?
David, what about, is Jay doing a wastewater update?
I'm here. I can do a brief one.
Well, there was one question from the audience about the stormwater
Sure.
effort. Is the stormwater project a county funded and managed project?
It is the answer, it's funded by, my understanding, it's funded by HUD as a block grant funding. And the engineering company that get the project will work with the county and with us to put together a stormwater plan for the village that would deal with a lot of the issues that were in the proposal. So for example, we know that at high tide, water does not run into the bay through the storm scepter and the stormwater system because it can't get out, and that floods the parts of the village. And we know that the stormwater system is very rudimentary and only covers part of the village. So the answer to the question is, it'll be managed by the county, but it'll be done by a contractor in association with the panel, since we initiated this effort. Does that answer the question, Ken?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, where are we? Development committee, we did. Do we want to do it again, Ann? No? Okay.
I did have a thought about the in-person meeting, though. We might be able to resolve it if we just all wear our yoga clothes.
Yeah.
Show up on Tuesday morning.
Okay, Jay, there was a special request for you to make from John Jensen to make a wastewater report. He obviously missed it. Oh.
Yes, I did receive a communication from Steve. I'm forgetting his last name, the assistant
Hotel.
county manager.
Chappelle.
Yeah, Steve Chappelle. Thank you, David. Saying that he was back in communication with Raftellus and they were trying to agree upon a model which to use to determine what our fair cost share would be, and that he would get back to me soon after they'd reached agreement on that model. Whether that means a couple of weeks or a couple of months, I don't know.
Thank you, Jay.
The only other thing I heard related to wastewater is I heard the county is still meeting and discussing the feasibility and the possibility of taking over the FGUA plant. And not only at South Seas, but FGUA throughout Lee County. So that's still an issue that's percolating at the county level and could have an impact on Captiva.
Definitely, if the county takes over FGUA plant, maybe that causes a reevaluation of the FGUA plant as where we have our wastewater processed.
Right. So I just heard that that's still going on, Jay. So that's
Yeah.
something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, Sandy, this wasn't on the agenda, but could you give a report on the first annual well-publicized iguana hunt?
Oh, thank you. Well, it went very well. It was push-pulled right to the very end because, you know, we didn't know how many people were going to be. And then when we planned it was supposed to be the coldest day. It turned out to be the wettest day, but we didn't get rained out. It worked out well. And Jimmy Burnson was great, and John Jensen was great. And so, John, you want to talk about the families or anything, or anything
Yeah.
that they said they wanted to do differently next time?
Yeah, there's definitely positive response. We ended up getting 63 iguanas total. The longest one was 5 foot long. For 2.5 hours, that's not too bad. People are asking, are we going to do it again? And I think I don't know if we want to do it. It was a good time to do it. If I don't know if it'd be the right thing to do when hopefully everybody's here. February, March might be too many people on the island, but definitely I think we could do it again. And there were kids involved, and Alfredo did a great educational seminar before the tournament. And I think it was very positive. A couple of things like Rick Zeltman thought would be a good idea is if you're signed in for the tournament, you get like a yellow vest that shows so if you're walking around or you're on your own property or wherever, they know you're part of the tournament. And we definitely, I think, keep it to the community because if we post it on Facebook, you might get a lot of people from Lehigh Acres or Cape Coral coming out, especially this prize month.
Come from Texas. They'll come from Texas.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Well, I had one Spanish gentleman call me and he said, iguana. And I said, did anybody speak English? Go, iguana. I go, okay. But I think, it brought the community. It was a fun little thing, and it has potential to do something, and if everybody gets educated, if they want to patrol their own property, they know if it does get cold enough, it's hard to plan something where the cold weather helps. So it was hard planning it. I know Sandy and we were going back and forth on it. So, if they know how to pick up iguanas and they want to do it, at least they can help in their own way. And then I don't know how many people actually want to shoot them themselves, but they can on their own property.
I think that's the biggest thing is that, I don't mind catching them. I just don't want to necessarily kill them. So we could put them, and that's what they had in the garbage cans. We had, they brought the big rolling garbage cans and you stick them in there, and then Alfredo takes them away and he gets rid of them. And then that's a safe way of doing it. So I did like that. And also he did talk about, like, if you're going to shoot them, where you shoot them, so you don't maim them, and how resilient they are, and so on. So there was a lot of education that went along, but I was surprised with the little children. and how they were supervised by their dads and moms. And so it was nice in that way. John Dickey brought his cherry picker out, and they were saying, is that, is that okay? And it's like, sure, if you have a cherry picker, any way you want to get them, that's fine. So I think there was some excitement about doing it again if the community was up to it.
Yeah.
I think if we do it again, I mean, you did it in very short notice, but there are logistic and legal issues associated with this, obviously, issues of is who sponsors it, who's responsible, if there's any, somebody gets injured inadvertently, and then there's the issue of people, who's actually participating. Do people come in from outside Captiva and participate and don't know what the rules are? So if we do it again, I think Sandy, maybe we'll have more time to figure all these things out and do it in a way in conjunction with Sergeant Zeltman, et cetera, and make it a really nice event that can include more people, but we would have the opportunity to figure out how to do it well when we have people.
I agree. And the Captiva Cruises did say that we could use their property, which would be, nice because it's open. It's not, you don't have people in the restaurant looking down to see what's going on because you don't want to offend anybody. They don't understand. They're on vacation, whatever. So we could grow it, or it could be something that the Captiva Erosion Prevention District wants to take it over, or the Captiva Rod and Gun Club. It doesn't have to be our event. We just want to get control of the iguanas.
Yeah.
We'll figure out the logistics next time, who sponsors it, how it gets sponsored, make sure legally it's all done right, et cetera. But thank you, Tony. I mean, thank you, Sandy.
Thanks, Dave.
You did a lot in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that I just want to raise is at the last meeting, we talked about doing an assessment, a post-Hurricane Milton, post-Hurricane Helene assessment, and ask if there are any lessons we'd learned or should learn about the sand, et cetera, et cetera. And we talked about that with Fire Chief Powell. So I'm suggesting that I'm going to call Chief Powell, and I'm going to talk to Ken, and maybe at the next meeting, we just talk about how we best do an assessment, post-hurricane assessment, see what we can do better, what we should do preemptively next time. And maybe even do a survey to our residents about if they have any ideas about how we should better prepare for a hurricane. And maybe get something out, and maybe this spring hold some sort of a meeting, either Zoom or otherwise, where everybody can participate and just talk about the hurricane and future hurricanes on Captiva. I know we talked about that meeting.
David, I think you should include CEPD in that.
Of course.
Okay, you didn't mention it.
I mean, CEPD, obviously, if we're dealing with sand, and also, I think the CCA could be involved in it, but I think we need to have a community discussion of
Right.
for in terms of future hurricanes, though I'm hopeful that there will be no future hurricanes. But let's do that. Okay. One other question I got is that from someone on Captiva said that he sees a lot of vehicles on the beach. I'm assuming, John and Linda, those are vehicles that are doing some preliminary work in terms of beach renourishment and returning sand. It's not a typical event. Am I right about that?
What type of vehicles did they say?
They didn't say. I had the feeling they were talking about a combination of CEPD vehicles, sheriff vehicles, maybe county vehicles. I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of vehicles on the beach. I don't know. Has anybody else seen vehicles on the beach?
Yeah.
This was it on the beach at the wrong time.
I've only seen working vehicles on the beach, meaning the trucks, the typical stuff that are people who should be there.
Allowed to be.
Most of that stuff has been winding down. Aptum did have a number of ATVs with their surveyors and their engineers on the beach prior to the holidays. But yeah, there shouldn't be much. We have one vehicle. I know, the fire department has a few, but outside of that, there shouldn't be that much activity. So if anybody does see something that looks out of the ordinary, please give us a call.
Okay, yeah, I suspected it was Aptum doing it for their surveys, et cetera. Okay. Ken, let me ask Ken, are there any comments or questions from the audience that haven't been answered?
No, there are not.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from members of the panel?
No.
Just one for me, talk about generosity at all. I like having Johnny on our committee United Way. We are having a golf tournament on the 26th, which is a Sunday morning. It's a scramble, very informal event. All the proceeds, when you pay the entry fee, all those proceeds go directly to the United Way. And if you feel real generous and you want to sponsor a whole team, that's wonderful too. And a couple extras, you can be invited to the hog roast on April 14th. So thanks again for all the support so far with the United Way. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah.
Any?
I had a quick question, David. Back to Rich's comments and the discussion about the curb up there by Jensen's, where they had the automobile accident. Is there any way to prompt the county or DOT or whoever's involved in this signage to move more quickly? I know we walk that curve every day a couple of times, and it's harrowing enough in the daytime, let alone we don't even try it at night. But it just, how does one know that anything's in the works to be done or to be restored there, I guess?
You're talking about signage that was there before, Mike?
Signage that there's a curb there to warn cars and to, often people and of course, part of the shoulder is covered with sand right now. So it's very difficult for our walkers and joggers. Just wondered if there's a sense of awareness on the part of DOT, county, whoever's responsible for that it needs to be done.
And you're talking about the Jensen curve,
Primarily, yes.
Okay, I've been in touch with the county DOT. I can ask about that. That I can do, and I will do that. Okay.
Appreciate it.
David, there's one comment that just came in from the audience. I saw a tricycle type vehicle fly by yesterday on the beach from the curve down to Turner.
Okay. Well, they shouldn't be there, so we'll deal with it.
No, well, if there are things going on the beach that you don't think are appropriate, the sheriff is probably the one to contact.
Okay, I think that's right. When there were golf carts on the beach, the sheriff were right on top of it in the past.
The sheriff takes care of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Ken?
That's all I've got.
Anything, other comments from the panel members?
No.
Okay, one more time, I just want to congratulate Tony on his book, Tales of an Island Innkeeper.
Yeah.
Tony Laffey and
Yeah.
Bill Schreiber, and we expect it to be on the New York Times bestseller list.
Yes.
As soon
I
as
don't think
possible.
Randy White's sweating it too much.
I'm sure it's going to be good. Thank you,
I'm
Tony.
happy to do it. You bet, gang. All right.
We have a motion to adjourn today's meeting. And Tony and Ann, is there a second?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a second. This meeting of January 14th, Captiva Community Panel is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Great job, David. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Have a nice afternoon.